Being a groundwater geologist, it's my bias always towards the groundwater, of course. But I'd like to prove that groundwater is the ultimate tool, is the ultimate resource. So groundwater is a tool which actually is useful for your survival on the planet Earth ultimately. And I'll tell you why. Because you know the entire water cycle in which the water moves is starting from the sea. It starts with the sea water getting evaporated, it coming to you via some clouds, and then it comes to your doorstep in the form of fresh and sweet water. But in the process, water is transferred to groundwater. Why I'm showing you this picture? This picture is a dried up river, and it is dried up to such an extent that you can play cricket on it. This is a cricket playground for the village lads, village boys, and this is a tributary to Narmada Ji. Now, Narmada is the lifeline of Madhya Pradesh. Narmada is the biggest river of Madhya Pradesh, which carries a lot of water. And you know, when we call the word tributary, tributary means a river which supports a major river. Now, this is a tributary to Narmada, and we all know that Narmada is not a glacial river, unlike Ganga Ji or Yamuna Ji. So, if it is a rain-fed river, it depends a lot, rather 100% on the support of the tributaries. These tributaries support Narmada Ji for flowing throughout the year. Now, this particular tributary is not having water in February. Why? Because if you see the banks of the rivers, they are 10 meters high. It's got a width of 30 meters. Now, this enormous water which flows during monsoon actually makes that river course. And that is all gone. That is all gone by the end of February, because the monsoon period ends at around October or November. And in February, no water is seen in this river. And ultimately, you can imagine the plight of Narmada, which is the major river, if the tributaries do not have water. Why is it so? Why do we lose so much of water? This all rainwater which comes to the rivers is actually washed away very quickly. It is flown very quickly, because the component of the hydrological cycle are runoff. First is evaporation, then precipitation, then runoff. And in the meantime, there is some infiltration. The infiltration takes place and it goes to these areas, the infiltration to the soil profile. And the soil oozes out water to the rivers. Ultimately, the rivers flow because of that oozing out of water from the soils. They are not glacial rivers, I must remind you again. So they depend on the water oozing out from the soil profile. But this soil profile is not able to absorb water because of a number of reasons. One of them is, of course, a faster rainfall event. The faster rainfall event is due to number of reasons, but here the faster rainfall actually is not percolating in the soil because the soil has been eroded away. It's been eroded away because you can see there are trees atop the river bank, but these trees, mere trees, will not help you develop a soil profile. There would be islands of soil, but you need ground covers, you need grasses, you need shrubberies, you need small plants to support the overall ecology, overall grabbing of the soil, overall soil conservation, which we forget, and we only plant trees. So that is why the soil has been eroded away, and that brings us to a vicious circle of, more faster rainfall, more runoff, and more water being flushed out in no time. So we don't have enough time for the groundwater to receive water from the subsoil. Ultimately, the groundwater resources are going to suffer. Now, the entire water cycle that we have on Earth is finite. I mean, the water quantity that we had millions of years ago is the same quantity that we have today. And what's the result? The result is that over 2.6 billion people have no basic sanitation. 1 billion people live without safe drinking water. So that is the result. And on top of it, there are some epidemics which require water to control. For example, the washing hands that are required for different viral infections. And during COVID periods, I calculated that you need to put extra 1,300 crore liter of water just to fight with the disease. So all these things are there to come along with climate change. So these things are going to impact your water resources, and that is where groundwater comes in handy. Around 34 lakh people, 3.4 million people die every year due to improper water. 18 lakh out of them are children below the age of 5. What does that mean? That means that in the next 24 hours, 4,000 kids are going to die because of impure water. Just imagine, 4,000 kids every day in some obscure corner of the world, and we don't talk about it. We talk about it only on World Water Day or World Environment Day. or on occasions like this. We need to think about that. Most of groundwater is used in agriculture. How much water do we use for agriculture? You know, we have to know that. Just to understand the various dimensions of water that we have, you need to understand how much water is required for different crops. Because that is the ultimate food security that you require. That is the ultimate security that you require. You have to eat whatever happens. So for 1 kg of wheat, just 1 kg of wheat, you need 900 liters of water. For just 1 kg of vegetables, you need 500 liters of water. For 1 kg of rice, you need 2000 liters of water. But the non-vegetarian foods have got bigger water footprints. 1 kg of chicken would need 3500 liters of water. And 1 kg of meat, I'm sorry to say, would need 10,000 liters of water. So what is the point? The point is that if you have a thali which is vegetarian, then you are consuming indirectly the virtual transfer to a thali from a field in Vidisha or Sihor, because the gehu is very well known from Vidisha and Sihor. So gehu from that particular field to your thali takes about 350 liters of water. Okay. So if you are vegetarian, then you consume 700 liters a day virtually for your 2 square meals of a day. And if you are a non-vegetarian, then you consume 2700 liters. So just by being vegetarian, you can consume 2000 liters less of water. That is, the virtual transfer is lesser. Now, we often say that the Third World War would be over water. Is it true? No, sir. I would disagree, because the Third World War is already happening. If you see the map of Turkey, Syria and Iraq, there are 2 rivers flowing by, Euphrates and Tigris. Turkey, Syria, Syria, Turkey, Turkey, Iraq, they are all fighting over the waters of these 2 rivers, Euphrates and Tigris. And such fights are there at least 180 places in the world, including the Palestine occupation of Israel. So these are all wars due to water. Similarly, the war between Russia and Ukraine. The first thing that the Russian forces did while entering Ukraine was to demolish a particular wall which was created by Ukrainian people to stop water flowing to Crimea. The point is that water is not only power, water is a tool in international diplomacy. And that is where we need to understand why that is so. Because 97.5% of the water is saline, 2.5% of water is sweet. But out of that 2.5% sweet water, 69% is locked up in glaciers. That's of no use to you or to me, to anybody in fact. And 30% of the sweet water on the earth is beneath you in the groundwater. That is what makes groundwater so important for us, actually. Only 1% of the sweet water flows around you in rivers or in ponds or in lakes. So 30% of the sweet water, major chunk, the maximum chunk of sweet water that you have is underground beneath your feet. That is why groundwater is so important. I was talking about water cycle earlier, about the evaporation, cloud formation, and the water coming back to you. That is the biggest water supply system on earth. That is the biggest sweet water supply to you on earth. That is free of cost, of course. But is it going to remain the same? No, sir, it's not going to remain the same because of climate change, because rate of transfer of water would be changing, temperature would change, period of transfer, the duration would change, climate itself is changing. So you must have noticed that the rainfall events are getting smaller but with more intensity. What is that going to do to groundwater? The groundwater recharge would be lesser. The groundwater situation would be far worse. And at the same time, why we are so vulnerable in India with climate change? Because our varsh depends on varsha. Varsha is a term which is derived from varsha only. If the varsha is not good, your varsh is not good. Half of our rivers are glacial rivers that are going to be impacted by climate change. Most of our rivers are rain-fed rivers, which are going to be impacted by different patterns of rains that we are having. And at the same time, a study tells us that about 27% of the country is going through a climate shift. So what is going to happen? The monsoon trough just last year only in 2022 shifted southwards. What did it do? When it shifted southward, there is no monsoon beyond that trough. And what did it do? It actually resulted in having more of rainfall in northern Madhya Pradesh and in Gujarat and Rajasthan. And there was very, very little rainfall in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, eastern Uttar Pradesh. What was the impact? The impact was that 1 lakh ton of paddy was produced lesser. The decline in the yield of paddy in Bihar and UP was 1 lakh ton. So that is all the impact of the climate change. And mind you, groundwater was not there to support paddy in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, because there in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, groundwater recharge is an annual cycle. So lesser the groundwater, the more the impact on the crops would be. Per capita availability, of course, we are heading towards the scarcity line, because 1000 meter cube is the scarcity line, and with the growing population, we are going to be water scarce country very soon in 2050. What is the situation that we are in? We are facing climate change, we are facing environmental degradation, reduction in natural groundwater recharge due to number of reasons, excessive groundwater withdrawal. And of course, India is a groundwater economy. You might not be knowing it, but we consume more groundwater than US and China put together. So we consume much groundwater, and that is why we are known in the world as groundwater economy. That is why groundwater is so important to us, and most of the groundwater that is utilized in India is in agriculture. So what is the adaptation strategy? 90% of groundwater is used in agriculture. What you have to do, and 7% is used for domestic needs, and only 3% for industry. What you have to do is you have to bring about 7% reduction in agriculture in groundwater use, and you automatically double the groundwater allocation for drinking sector. That solves a lot of your rural drinking water problem. That has been my area of work recently. And that brings you drinking water security in the country, in the rural parts of the world. So you use more crop water efficiency, crop water budgeting to allocate more, or to allow more groundwater to be used for agriculture. Now, you have to conserve water, you have to harvest rainwater, you have to do rooftop rainwater harvesting. Number of techniques are there. We are not going to discuss all these techniques. Very simple techniques are there which are available. But are we trying to do something which has not been done before? No, sir. We have been practicing it since long. Abdul Rahim Khan Khana, the two famous lines are there. Raiman pani rakhiye, bin pani sab soon, pani gaye no ubre, modi mara chun. But he was not just a poet or a shair. He was an army general who had 30,000 troops in Asirgarh fort. And he utilized the rainfall runoff from Asirgarh to be stored in soft rock areas of Asirgarh, which is still working in the name of Kundi Bhandara. So that was his device, that was his innovation. And we have got people like him, like Bachu Singh, a good friend of mine, a tribal from a village in Alirajpur. What he does is, he has got some medicinal plants, he's got some medicinal agriculture, and he has got an open well, which is only 1.5 meter deep. That is what is called sustainable water management. And he has got a 2 horsepower pump in that particular open well. When I told him that you can put in more horsepower pump, you can draw more water from the open well because it has got such a good yield of water, what he said was, he said that we take only that much from environment what is needed. Utna hi lena hai jitne ki unko zarurat hai. That's his philosophy, and that is the philosophy of sustainability. And for the more water requiring crops, he has got another technique. He plants them in the downstream areas where there is a water current, undercurrent of water beneath the floor of the nala. So he utilizes the water which is flowing under the nala, which is not visible on the surface, and he is utilizing that water which is not no use to anybody. He is not a geologist like me. He is not an engineer or management graduate like you, but he uses his common sense. So groundwater and water management is all about common sense. What he has done is, he has actually reduced the carbon footprint like anything. If he would have transferred this water from this place to his field, a lot of energy would have been required. So he has reduced his water footprint as well as carbon footprint. We need more people like him. We need more Bachu Singh. We have got a Bachu Singh in all of us. I got a Bachu Singh in me. You have got a Bachu Singh in me. You just have to awaken him, and you just have to listen to him. What does he say for water management? There is a 4R principle, but I have added 3 more R's to it. Reduce, reuse, recycle, recharge, we all know, but there are 7 R's now. I have added restore, rejuvenate, and respect. Respect people who work for water. Respect people who care for water like you and me. Respect water resources, respect water. Thank you very much. Thank you.